Well, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is so wonderful to be with everyone here this evening. And I'll tell you, for people who are joining us from home, it's wonderful that you're with us as well. It's wonderful because we're in this time right now of being able to feel like we can really now, can we really believe that spring is coming? No. You still won't believe it? See, I actually now feel like spring really is coming. I believe that it is. And not only that, I feel like it's coming and we're going to actually get at least a few weeks from it. Like, I think that actually, who thinks it might snow again? Who is sure that it's going to snow again? All right. So I don't think we can gamble on Shabbat, so I won't say like who's going to take which bets, but I will say this. What I love about this time of year is the way it aligns with the Jewish calendar, so that in this time where we are saying, is it really going to come? I really do think that it's going to come. I believe it's going to come. Maybe it's not going to come so quickly. I'm not sure. That we actually, in our Jewish calendar right now, are going through the same thing. Where we are in this time of beginnings, and beginnings are often hard, and we say, is it really going to be what I need it to be? Tonight we are starting Rosh Chodesh Iyar. So we're starting this new month, this new moon of Iyar, where we always celebrate these different holidays within the Jewish calendar, where we are celebrating both, we're commemorating Yom HaZikaron, where we recognize fallen soldiers, and then we're celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and we say to ourselves, is this the year we get it right finally? Is this the year that when we've hoped for peace and we've worked for peace, is it actually going to come? And I will not ask you to raise hands about who thinks this year it's actually going to come, but we have this time. And we also have this time of counting the Omer, where each of these days we're counting, where today we counted last night, the 15th day of counting the Omer, where we're just waiting for Shavuot to come. And we're waiting for this holiday where we're celebrating receiving Torah. We're just waiting to see, are we really going to get more of its lessons this year? Are we really going to put them into action? And then what I most love about all of this is that we take our time on Shabbat to say, yeah, there's a whole lot of anxiety, and yeah, we're not really sure. But what we can be sure of is that if we take this time as a community, as a family, as a person, to say this is Shabbat and I'm gonna just take a break. And maybe during this time, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna put my anxieties just right out the door. They'll be there later, but maybe for this time, we can just relax into Shabbat, know that we have a lot to celebrate as a community. We have special people to say goodbye to, but to bless in the time that we're saying goodbye. We have time to be able to recognize our incredible teachers and their incredible students. We have a time of being able to say, this was a really hard time for my family, and I need a little bit of peace. Can I find it here? And we say to each other and to ourselves, yes, for this time of Shabbat, just peace, just now. So wish each other, the people around you, a Shabbat Shalom, and really mean it. Shabbat Shalom. Well, it is a true honor to call up for candles in Kiddush our 4th and 5th graders and their families and their remarkable teachers. So if you would, I'm looking at you. Sam Cohen, you certainly count. Rachel Lipson, you certainly need to be up on this bima. All of you who bring so much light into our community, please come onto the bima. So so we can celebrate you. And you can just come all the way to where the cantor is. That is one of the slower walks that I've seen going toward the candles, but I love that the cantor is still like, no, you can keep coming.
Candles, children. Fire, fire, fire. Come on.
The candle blessings found on page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel
Beautiful. Now you have your wonderful tour guide to show you your next stop on the bima, and that is to the center of the bima for the kiddush. The words are found on page 123. In body, in spirit, please rise.
I'm chanting it. You look so worried. Come. Okay. Page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher yetziat Mitzrayim kivanu rachata ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. Thank you so
it's
much.
just apple juice. We're so
It's
sorry.
great. It is. No, it's white grape juice.
It's white.
It doesn't really make
Wow.
that any better, but it's still
Even better.
It does mean that we're doing the kiddush with the
We cherish our
grapes.
teachers. We love you. We love our students and families. Thank you guys so much.
We love you so
can be
much,
seated.
and
Now
thank
you
you
can
so
relax.
much,
Now you can relax.
Kowalski and Arella,
Beautiful. Thank you.
and Jackie.
Jackie.
Thank you so much.
Arella, you're a contralto like my mother. Beautifully done.
We can be seated as we turn to page. Oh, we can be seated actually, unless your name is Bella Serrata. In which case, we're going to invite you to the bima, and we'll invite the congregation. Yeah. All right.
That's perfect.
And we'll invite you to come up this way. All right. Or not to do it all what the rabbi asked, and we'll just come up. Well, then maybe we stay right here. Oh. So tonight, those of you who do not know Bella Serrata, you have the opportunity to already know that you have benefited from this extraordinary woman. This extraordinary woman who came to the United States, how many years ago?
33.
33 years ago. And before she came there, she fought with her family very hard to maintain her Judaism in a time where it was very hard to be a Jew in the area of the former Soviet Union. And yet, it might have been very hard for you to be a Jew. It was hard for you to do just about everything that you were doing.
I was not Jew there.
You didn't even feel like it, except for that you would make sure with your family to be able to get matzah smuggled in a pillowcase to make sure to at least see that there was this line for you to be a Jew, and then an invitation to come to the United States for you to truly live as an example of what we hold to be the best kind of Jew. Now, the kind of Jew that we hold to be the most important is one who creates opportunities for others, one who invites people into community, one who makes sure not to lose, as you were a survivor of the Holocaust, to not lose that part of the community here in the United States. You have been somebody who has supported so many people through those struggles, living with the trauma on the other side of the Holocaust. You've been someone who has said, I have so much here, let me give back. And so at Temple Sholom, you've made sure that people who are homeless or hungry or just lonely are able to have a place here on Monday nights to be able to have a Monday meal. For how many years have you volunteered at the Monday meal? Since its inception, since it began, 15 years ago. And beyond that, you've also been such a good friend to friends here at Temple Sholom. You know what it's like to have been a stranger, and so you welcome everyone in. And I'll tell you, for me, when I was a stranger here at Temple Sholom, you welcomed me in. You welcomed Cantor in. And I think there are so many of us who have been welcomed in by Bella Serrata. And so, Bella, there are other people who are welcoming you to Idaho. It happens to be your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So we can't hold it against you that you have another place to go on your journey. But we can't have you go there without being blessed by this community. So I invite everyone here now.
Thank you so much.
Truly, we love you. We love you, but we respect you so much and admire you. And we want to get just a little bit more of your courage and your grace. You are leaving that as a legacy to us, but it only means that there's a legacy here if we make sure that that's true and we keep living in Bella's light. And so in that way, I invite us now to hold up our hands in blessing as we bless you, Bella, with a threefold benediction, and as you bless this community with it as well.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God continue to bless you and protect you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May God's light continue to shine on you and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom, shalom.
Our beautiful Bella, may you always feel lifted by every community that's lucky enough to have you in its presence. May you feel connected, and may that bring you peace. And to that we say, Amen.
Amen. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to have you all.
We're a little mad at
and
Idaho.
have all this
We are.
community. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so blessed.
Love you.
Yeah. Thank you.
May I escort you?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
We continue now. There are other angels in our midst as well. We have Shabbat angels that we welcome in with Shalom Aleichem on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitzchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And we are so excited now to invite Ryder and Franco Shemer to the Bima now. You can bring your parents with you, Casey and Chris. And for this, we'll invite the community to please rise. It is so cool. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I love where this came from. So here, I'm gonna give this to you for just for now. And I'm going to, oh my gosh, say to the four of you. Firstly, I think we should come closer to this. I mean, how beautiful is it that you're gonna have your naming in front of the ark that holds our Torahs. So your parents, yeah, exactly, like pull them all over, gently. We've not gotten to my sermon yet, but it is about gentleness. So I want to say to the two of you, your parents have chosen such beautiful names for you. They chose beautiful names for you to have in English, like Ryder and Franco, that connects you to family in really special ways. And then they chose for you Hebrew names that actually connect you to even more people. And we know that your grandparents are watching online, and you have grandparents who are here with us, and we feel them both, and we're so excited that they're all with us in this moment. And so I'll say to the two of you, I'll say to you first, Ryder, and I'll speak to your Hebrew name. And then Franco, I'm going to say a blessing for you, and then I'm going to give you your Hebrew name. Does that sound good? And then I'll talk to you both about the meaning of your Hebrew names. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Kayem et hayalda, hazot la'aviha ul'ima, v'yikareh shema b'Yisrael. Are you ready? Zahavi Orit, Bat Mira, Yakira, V'Chris. Yismach ha'av v'yotzeit chalatza v'tagel ima b'fri vitna, zot ha'katana gedola tehiyeh. Geshem shenichnasa labrit, kein tikanes l'Torah u'chupa u'ma'asim tovim. Our God and God of our ancestors, sustain this wonderful child, Ryder, through her parents' loving care. Let her be known among our people Israel by the name Zahavi Orit, Bat Mira, Yakira, V'Chris. May her name be a source of joy to her and inspire her to serve our people and all humankind. May her parents rejoice in her growth of body and soul, and as they brought her into this covenant, So may they, with wisdom and patience, lead her to continue her study of Torah, her life of good deeds, and to be able to explore loving relationships that feel like God's blessing. And to that we say, Amen. Do you want to hold your certificate? It's really beautiful. Are you ready, Franco? You really have some choice, but not so much, so I'm really glad that you nodded. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, k'yem et hayeled hazel aviv ul ima, v'karei shemo b'Yisrael. You ready for yours? Chanina Zev, ben Mira Yakira v'Chris. Yismach ha'av v'yotzet chalatzav v'tagel imo b'fri v'itna, zehakaton gadol yehiyeh, kashem shenichnas labrit, ken yikanes l'Torah u'chuppah u'ma'asim tovim. Our God and God of our ancestors, sustain this child through his parents' loving care. Let him be known among our people Israel by the name Chanina Zev ben Mira Yakira v'Chris. May his name be a source of joy to him and inspire him to serve our people and all humankind. May his parents rejoice in his growth of body and soul, and as they have brought him into this covenant, so may they, with wisdom and patience, lead him to continue his study of Torah, continue his life of good deeds, and find deep satisfaction in loving relationships. And to that, let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
And so I'll say just a word about the way where your names came from. So you both are named for your great-grandparents, Golda and Harry, and Evelyn and John. And the thing about Golda and Harry is that they were so in love with each other that they would say, if you give 100% to your partner and they give 100% of their love to you, well, then you don't have to worry so much about yourself. They were a couple that made everyone around them feel safe and secure. And they also raised an incredible woman who's your grandmother, who's as loving and good as they come. And she also raised a really good daughter, too. And you're also named for Evelyn and John, who were resilient, who had lives when they could filled with laughter, and they realized that any darkness that would come their way, if they could have laughter and resiliency, they could get through anything. So your parents named you in connection to them so that you would take on their qualities, and that you, Chanina Zev, would have through your name fierceness and boldness and courage and compassion, and that you, Ryder, with your name, Zahavi Orit, would have leadership and reasoning, empathy and certainty. Your name, Ryder, literally in your Hebrew, means a great golden light. How beautiful is that? That's how you make us feel. And I'll say to you, Franco, your name, Chanina Zev, brings out this way in which Zev means wolf. Chanina comes from the word to be compassionate and graceful. So with you, then, you have this balance in you. You have this way to be able, like Rabbi Chanina of the Talmud, to show great grace and courage to others and show them their light. And also you have a fierceness and you travel with a pack. I can't imagine a better pack than your family and this community. And so we have the honor of blessing you, the three of you, with a threefold benediction as we wrap you in this very special talit from your family. Got it? Can you hold this over on this side? Perfect. Thank you.
Dad, you got it.
And we'll put our hands up in blessing. May God continue to bless you and protect you. May God's light continue to shine upon you and be gracious to you.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך. שלום, שלום, שלום.
May God continue to lift you and help you feel supported and loved and cherished. And may that bring you peace. And to that we all say, Amen. Mazel tov. Simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. Simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. Simen tov, simen tov.
mazel tov, simen tov. Yehelanu, 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 ulechol Yisrael. Yehelanu, yehelanu, ulechol Yisrael. You do your own thing in life.
We turn now to page 146 as we remain standing, if we were standing, for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach
And as we turn to page 152, we listen for God's blessing of oneness in our community, in life, in God's self. Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Annette. As we turn to page 158, we contemplate what it is to walk in toward redemptive times. We contemplate what it is to walk in toward freedom without knowing exactly what we're going to find as we continue on that trek through that desert journey, but knowing that, wow, there was great miracles that happened for us. Probably, if we look for them, they happen to us all the time.
מיכה מוחה ביילים אדוני מיכה Tehilot, Oseh, Thelen, Nora, Tehilot, Oseh, Thelen, Malchutecha, Rauvanecha, Bokei Hayam, Lifnei Moshe uMiriam, Ze'eli, Amru, Ve'aneu, Adonai, Nimloch, Le'olam, Va'ed,
Miracles like being able to hear some fourth and fifth graders singing really loud in the community.
Thank you.
Yes. And so as we turn now to page 162, we see how we continue to protect this time of Shabbat, this time of peace, this time of joy.
V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et hashamat lasot et hashavat v'dorotam berit olam. Yishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz ubayom hashvi'i shavat vayinachash.
And miracles like welcoming back an incredible 8th grade student from his time in Israel, and for us to get to hear a little bit about what meant most to him on his journey to Israel with a bunch of folks. How many people were on your trip, Baxter?
100 and...
Over 100 people
Thank
were
you.
on this trip. And so Baxter Miller, who you might have seen the family resemblance, happens to be the son of Cantor Ben David. We are so grateful to welcome you back and for you to share with us the things that you learned on your journey.
My first time going to Israel was with my mom and my brother, who was a baby then. I remember it being such a fun experience, especially going to Hebrew school and having the Israeli teachers laugh at my horrible Hebrew and New York accent. At first, I was very nervous about the groups, the plane ride, and if I was going to make friends. But once I got there, all my worries went away. From the food and chaotic bus rides, singing Party in the USA, or kids sneaking out of the rooms to go be with the friends, or the funny tour guides, it was an amazing experience. Seeing all the different types of people in Israel and learning about its history and culture was a great opportunity, especially when you were literally in Israel to do it. I came out of that trip with stronger friendships, more knowledge about Israel, and 2 containers of Rogalach. This trip had everything. At one point, you're learning about the history of Israel and visiting the Kotel. Then you're spending shekels at the shuk and getting lost. Then you're having dinner at a hotel and watching SpongeBob in Hebrew till 1 a.m. with your friends. This trip was an experience I will never forget, and I hope most people get to go on. Shabbat Shalom.
Well, you might not have to endure another blessing, but could you be up here as we sing with the congregation, the Shehachianu, thanking God for bringing you to that time in Israel, and thanking God for this moment for us to be able to hear about it and appreciate it.
Down for that.
I'm so glad. Are you down for that to sway with your son?
Oh, no, no. He will never forgive me.
Good motherly choice.
Can we make him part of the birthday blessing, Shehechianu, and then he will feel less
All right, so
exposed?
are there other people who have experienced a birthday or who will in the month of April? Do we have April birthday blessings?
I saw some nudging. Now I know it's your birthday.
Oh,
now
I love
know.
that. So
Sorry.
please come to the Bima.
Yep.
Please come to the Bima.
Yep. That's kind of the response my son had when I spoke to him about tonight, too.
Oh, look at that.
Here, come down here with me.
And
Yes!
so,
Yes! Thank
and
you.
so let's
I know.
hear the day of your, like the day in April that's your birthday.
15th.
Nothing in June.
The 8th. Also the 15th.
Wow.
Tax day.
And so we, as a community, hope that you continue to grow, to feel like that even when you're here just in Chicago waiting for the spring to really come fully, that you feel like you're going on these great journeys with friends, that you feel yourself being lifted by our community and by your own different communities, your friends, and most of all yourself. May this be a very good year to you and to all whom you care about.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. The longest amen you've ever done in your life.
We turn now to page 166. Page 164 for our tefillah. Please rise.
Anananananana Adonai Ananananana Sifatai Tiftach Ananananana Ufi Agid Ufi Agid Tehilatecha Ananananana Adonai Anananana Sifatai Tiftach Ananananana Ufi Agid Tehilatecha Ananananana Adonai Anananana Sifatai Tiftach Ananananana Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'konei hakol, v'zocher chasrei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'neihem leman shemo v'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor leolam Adonai, mechaye hakol atah rab loshia, Morid hatal, mechalkel chaim b'chesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rofech olim, ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו בלי שני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמנת על החיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue now in silent prayer, and we do so through page 180. You'll find here beautiful prayers either in the Hebrew on the right side of the page or beautiful interpretations of prayer on the left side of the page. So find some moments now in this quiet space to be able to read some of these and feel how they can connect to your heart. And when you're finished with your private prayers, please be seated.
Oh, say shalom imromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Well, in this week's Torah portion, Tazria, we hear about the plague of Tzara'at. We hear about this in its own form this time. But in another part of the Torah, we hear about the time that it actually fell upon Miriam, Moses' sister. And when it did, and when she was struck with Tzara'at, this kind of skin affliction that's like a scaly white skin, well, then Moses, turned to God and just cried out to God with just a spontaneous one-line prayer, El na refana la. Please, God, heal her. And I have to say that sometimes when we want to find the right words to say to someone who's suffering, when we want to see about what healing could look like or feel like in our own lives, sometimes we feel like we don't quite have the words. Sometimes we feel like we don't quite have the energy. But if we can remember from Moses, just a spontaneous line, just a way in which, just with one thing to say, please heal, take a little bit of the suffering away, make my life feel a little more lifted, a little more nourished. Well, sometimes that's all we need. And sometimes if we don't have the strength to pray for that ourselves, sometimes it's really wonderful when we know that others are praying for us. And so if you are praying for your own healing, or if there's someone in your life for whom you are praying for their healing, I invite you to say their name.
May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to and let us say, Misheberach imotenu Makor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body. And let us say, Amen.
So I had so much fun during Passover. Our first night Seder we spent at home with our family, and our second night Seder we spent here at the congregation, and both were so magnificent. But I think nothing was better than when we went home to St. Louis to visit these guys. So that is my nephew Jacob, not the little one, the big one. And that's his son Harrison, who I got to meet for the first time. And we loved spending time together, laughing together in St. Louis, being able to see all the silly things that we could all do together. But when my son Eli pointed out who my nephew Jacob looked like, I couldn't believe that I didn't see that resemblance before. This guy. Anybody know who that guy is? Uh-huh. Theodore Herzl. So if you needed any help with knowing exactly who he was, I did have a second slide here for you to see him in context. That really is just the next slide. And there he is. And so, if you don't know, Theodore Herzl is a father of Zionism, and he really staked that claim with his 1896 book, Der Judenstaat, The State of the Jews, in which he argued that the Jewish people should leave Europe for Palestine, their historic homeland. And to make that vision a reality, he convened the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland, and he then also expanded, thinking not just about European Jews, but Jews around the world. And he was elected president of that Congress, a position he held until his death in 1904. So he wrote this about Zionism. He said, I once called Zionism an infinite ideal. It will not cease to be an ideal even after we attain our land, the land of Israel. Zionism encompasses not only the hope of a legally secured homeland for our people, but also the aspiration to reach moral and spiritual perfection. Whoa. Not just attaining our land, the land of Israel, not just having a legally secured homeland for our people, but an aspiration to reach moral and spiritual perfection. Whew. So, what do you think that Theodor Herzl would think if he looked at Israel today? How are we doing? Would he see a thriving democracy whose citizens know to take to the streets when they believe their democracy to be in peril? Would he see a nation in chaos, downgraded in economic ranking due to its instability, and increasingly vulnerable to enemies who seek its destruction? Would he see something else? Many people like me are concerned, very concerned, about Justice Minister Yariv Levin's extreme proposals to reform the judiciary in Israel. And the most worrisome is the proposal to allow the Knesset, the parliament, to override the Supreme Court if the court judges a law proposed by the Knesset to be unjust. The Knesset can then vote to override the Supreme Court's override, making it a law. So they want to be able to override the Supreme Court, and they want to give it much less power. So that makes especially at risk people who have been on the margins, LGBTQ folks, and people who are Palestinians, and women and their rights, and non-Jewish immigrants living in Israel, not to mention Reform and conservative Jews. So this is a real danger when the executive sits in the parliament, so there's no real separation of power without the Supreme Court. And so I'm heartened by images where people are saying we need to protect democracy. Images like these children fighting for democracy. And this photo of Amos Horev, do you see him there? 90 years old. He doesn't quite look as good as Cookie Marx, but who does? Right, Cookie? Who does? But Amos Horev, his sign reads there, I, one of the first of the Palmach, am once again fighting to defend our country. The Palmach was the elite unit of the Haganah, the underground army in Jewish Palestine, and Amos Horev joined the Haganah in 1938 when he was 14 years old. And he then was there to launch the Palmach when he was 17 in 1941. And in the War of Independence, Amos Horev was in many battles around Jerusalem. So he knows what it's like to see Israel in peril. And there is real danger. If the extreme measures proposed are actually passed, if they go through, then people's rights will be at stake. And there's also a danger that there's not enough diversity on the Supreme Court because the way that the judges are appointed by the President of Israel. So on the one side, yes, if these extreme measures are proposed, people's rights will be at stake in a way we will not recognize Israel. And there is also a danger that there's not enough diversity on the Supreme Court because the judges are appointed by the President of Israel, and they're appointed from the names submitted by the Judicial Selection Committee. And this selection committee was established in 1953, and it was intended to prevent outside political pressure and to ensure the independence of the judges, yet some worry that it's become much of an insider's circle, and so it needs reform. And there's another danger that I don't think has been given enough attention in these past weeks. And Noah Ephron put it well in his episode of a podcast. He called this episode "A Conflict That Contains a Lifetime of Conflicts," when he said, "For years, people like me have often said that Israel is and needs to be a Jewish and democratic state, as though that simple formula is the solution to our problems, instead of our maybe biggest problem to solve. What does it mean, Jewish and democratic? Is that possible, Jewish and democratic? And it is a problem that we are really far from solving. And that much the past couple of months has made clear." He continues, "The past months have made clear that we have all sorts of big problems. Problems like, how do you make one society out of a people from dozens and dozens of different places who speak different languages, worship different gods, and no God at all, who find meaning in different things, without doing away with all those differences? How do you make them one people? Problems like, how do you make up for injustices done by our parents and our parents' parents? And how do you make up for injustices done to our parents and our parents' parents? And problems like this one. How do you keep a country of tribes from becoming a country of tribalism? And that's my fear. And the greatest danger that we're not talking about, that we might fall into a trap of demonizing one another. On one side, accusing all the people who want reform in the judiciary of wanting to do away with democracy, and on another side, accusing all the people who are protesting against the proposed judicial reforms of being Ashkenazi elite who want to keep their friends in power. And if we push these differences too far, if we push these differences and not being able to see one another's points at all, well, that kind of senseless hate, we've seen that the Talmud tells us that it can lead to exile. In fact, it attributes Jews' contempt for one another to have caused the destruction of the temple by the Romans and that exile of the Jews. God forbid we let that happen. And there's a distinction that Arthur Brooks made in a conversation with Ezra Klein between anger and contempt. Anger is often a constructive emotion, an emotion that wants resolution. I'm angry with you, so what I want to do is have some kind of interaction around that anger. Anger, he says, is relational. But contempt is the opposite. Contempt is you're abhorrent. Contempt is you're beneath me. Contempt is you're not worth engaging with. Anger is like the story that I've heard often in the halls of Hartman Institute in Jerusalem, where David Hartman would often liken the history of Zionism, he says, is like a little kid who screams, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you," and then slams the door, but stays inside. That's anger. I'm so mad at you, I want to leave, but I'm going to close the door and I'm going to stay inside and we're going to hash this out. Contempt is when we go outside that door. I'm so angry with you. You're not even worth me saying anything to. Your views are unacceptable. You, then, are unacceptable. I don't see you beyond your views, and I'm outside this door, and we have nothing to talk about. And what I worry is, right now, contempt is what we might be seeing. And you can't get beyond contempt. But you can get beyond anger. Anger is a productive emotion because it keeps us in relationship. And anger we get beyond with compassion by staying in the house, staying in the conversation. Susan Sontag wrote in her book, The Pain of Others, compassion is an unstable emotion, and it needs to be translated into action or it withers. If one feels that there is nothing we can do, and who's the we, and nothing they can do either, who's the they, then one starts to get bored and cynical and apathetic. But if we keep working this muscle of compassion, well, then we can translate it into action, and it strengthens. We are a Jewish people, and we struggle, and we stay in relationship, even with each other, when we're really angry with one another. And we need anger tempered by compassion, not contempt. Interestingly, in this week's Torah portion, people often misread contempt for what happens to the person who gets tzara'at in the camp. When somebody speaks ill to another person, well, then they get tzara'at, and they go outside of the tent of meeting, and they have to stay there until the tzara'at goes away. The whole idea of this is to say you have to stay out there until you're ready to come in. But it's also saying you need to come back in. When somebody comes back into the tent, then they will come in and they'll be part of the community again. And not only that, the camp won't leave without them there. The camp stays a unit. Somebody is never quite all the way outside of that tent. No one, everyone stays within those doors. I'm angry with you, so I'm going to talk with you. I'm going to hash this out. I'm going to listen to your point of view. I'm going to have compassion for you as a human being, even if I find your views tough. I'm going to hear where you're coming from. And I am going to make sure that my anger is tempered by compassion, and I do not harbor contempt. In this situation, we need compassion to temper our anger, because compassion can lead to compromise. And compromise, God willing, will lead to a constitution. Right now in Israel, they need a constitution. There's so much about not being able to do away with the Supreme Court because there's no separation of power without it. And the problem with this is that it's always an interpretation of the Declaration of Independence and laws that have come up since then that are not codified in some way in a constitution. That's very tough. It means that people don't feel like they can compromise because they don't see a way to be able to do this as a nation. We need to encourage them to get there. They need to stay angry and protest, and they need to listen to each other. They need to find a way to compromise, not their principles. They need to find a way to compromise with the way in which they want the laws and the judges to be chosen, and they need to do so and then codify that in the Constitution. I think there's no better time to do this than the month of Iyar that has just begun. No better time to do this than the 75th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. No better time to do this than a time that can be filled with hope and dreams and vision that, if they are going to happen, require compromise. So that host of that podcast, it's called The Promised Podcast. Noah Ephron is its host. I was so impressed by that episode that was the conflict that contains a lifetime of conflicts that I asked him to tell me, well, would you just tell me what gives you hope right now? And he said that when I first came to Israel in 1987, it was at the time of the First Intifada, and most everything that mattered was on hold between the place, because the place was embattled and endangered. Equality for women, no time for that. We're a small country in a state of war. A raw deal that Jews from the Middle East got, no time for that. We're a small country in the state of war. Palestinians living lives under the cold, watchful eye of Jewish soldiers, no time for that. We're in a small state in a country of war, a small country in a state of war. So what does it mean for Israel to be a Jewish state? No time for that. We're a small country in a state of war. But he said that the story of his whole life has been the story of taking things off hold since 1987. Most everything is out in the open now. Most every angry voice can be heard, and every complaint, which is frightening, and it can feel like everything is in danger of collapsing. But in fact, this is just what moral improvement looks and feels like. Here's the bottom line, he says. In my now decades here, I have seen Israeli hearts grow more yielding and bigger. I have seen Israeli souls grow wiser, and I have seen our moral thinking grow more complex and shaded. So on this Rosh Chodesh Iyar, let's imagine this growing like the moon. Let's imagine that Israelis are growing wiser and more open, more yielding to one another, that they're hearing from one another where they can be able to come together to a shared vision, to actually share what they're thinking, share what might be best for the country, and find a way to be angry and to temper that anger with compassion, have that lead to a compromise, and God willing, a constitution that brings more peace to the people, not only the people of Israel, the people of Palestine and beyond. And to that, we say, Amen.
Yisrael, Yisrael, Yisrael Chai. Yisrael, Yisrael, Yisrael Chai. Yisrael, Yisrael, Yisrael Chai. Yisrael, Yisrael Chai.
We invite you to look at the announcements online. You'll see that as you leave here this evening, that there will be a code, that you'll see a QR code on the screen on your way out. And there you can use your phone to be able to see the announcements. I do want to say that we will be having a guest scholar. That's next Sunday, so I think we can wait on that. But I will say this week, we have a guest scholar. We have two guests. We have a guest scholar on Sunday who's going to talk about how the Bulgarian Jews survived the Holocaust. That's going to be with Joseph Benetov. and he'll outline the historical facts from there. I'll also say the other piece is later that day at 12:30, we are going to have a great lunch from Faya. So a beautiful Middle Eastern place is going to cater an incredible lunch here at 12:30. And then at 1 o'clock, we are going to hear from Orly Erez-Lochovsky, the director of the Israel Religious Action Center. She is extraordinary. She has fought and really won a lot of major legal achievements in Israel and also around social equality. And I'll also say she was herself somebody who was a justice of the court, so she has a lot of insider views that she'll be able to share with us about how she sees what needs for reform there might be and what she thinks needs to be protected. And we are very much looking forward to hearing from her. Sunday, April 23rd at 1 p.m. is when we're going to learn from her mixed presence. But if the mix of your presence is here, then at 12:30, you're going to have a lot of wonderful Israeli snacks to enjoy. So we're looking forward to all of that. And of course, we're doing this in the time of counting the Omer. And so as we are counting these days, yesterday evening we counted 15, so you know what tonight's count is. If you want to follow along with us for the blessing and then the counting, please turn to page 570.
הנני מוכן ומזומן, הנני מוכן ומזומן, לקיים מצוות עשה של ספירת, מצוות עשה של ספירת העומר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת העומר. היום 16 יום שהם שני שבועות או שני ימים לעומר.
We invite you now to turn to the bottom of page 586 for Aleinu. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
And many of us tonight are remembering those who taught us a lot about compassion, about love. And so tonight we are remembering and cherishing their memories as one community. We first remember those who passed away, who died in recent days, whose families are still in the period of Shloshim, of the 30 days since their passing. We remember with fondness, love, and treasuring Karen Reeser, Ira Levinson, Sandy Schwartz, Yehuda Murati, Sari Smith, Theodore Goldberg, Alfred Gorgie, Denise Graney, and Leroy Fadum. We also, this evening, Mark the yahrzeit of Rebecca Bess Edelman, Roland Barretts, Suzanne Bartness, Erwin Berkeley, Dr. Jacob Bernstein, Lillian Confino, Simon Fairman, Oscar Fettman, Margaret Fischel, Albert Fisher, Ann S. Fisher, Barbara Fox, Nathan First, Martin First, Harold Ginsberg, Jay Glickman, Sherry Chemico Goodman, Israel Halpern, Marlene Hecker, Charlotte Jacobson, Mary Joseph, Stanley Kaplan, Hartley Carnes, Marilyn Kramer, Sarah Krulowicz, Morris I. Lieberman, Golda Levin, Donald Levy, Judith Lichtenstein, Edwin Lippman, Lawrence Leventhal, Della W. Manister, June Manning, Maxine Oringer, Gail Park, Jean Rose, Kate Schall-Leavitt, Aaron Stabiner, Beatrice Tepper, Ann Trossman, Bernice Bunny Wallace, Beverly Whipson, and Hannah Wolf. And if there are others you are remembering, I invite you to share their name. Kadishia Tome is on page 598.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon, v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'miran v'yalma v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei shlam araba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom v'imromav, uyaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Oseh shalom v'imromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru imru. Amen.
I want to say again a very special thank you to our 4th and 5th graders, their families, their teachers, their administrators. We're so grateful and we love the way you led us this evening. Thank you. Mazel tov to the Shemer family. Mazel tov to Franco and Ryder and their families. Mazel tov to Baxter. Wonderful for you to share your thoughts with us. That was so fabulous. And thank you everyone for being here this evening. It is wonderful to be one people, Am Yisrael,
Page
that lives.
642, if you need it, if you desire it. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. 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 O Rabbeinu Chai, O Rabbeinu Chai. O Rabbeinu, O Rabbeinu, O Rabbeinu Chai. O Rabbeinu Chai, O Rabbeinu Chai. O Rabbeinu, O Rabbeinu, O Rabbeinu Chai.
We love you, Bella. This is not goodbye. This is
Oh,
Lahitra
Bella.
Ode. We will see you again and again. Blessings everywhere you go. Blessings to everyone everywhere we go. Hopefully to the Oneg. We've got special treats this evening in honor of our 4th and 5th graders and in anticipation of Yom HaAtzmaut. Shabbat Shalom.